Joy and peace are in this hour. Here, not another place. Here in this beloved flower, now in this beloved space. Good morning. My name's Tracy Robinson. I think I know most of you. My co-leader this morning is Walt Hagenbuch. The idea for this service about joy was the brainchild of Katie Vey. I'm grateful to her for giving us the theme of joy to contemplate and to explore. Unfortunately, Katie has been ill the last month and not able to be here. I think she might be joining us by Zoom. She reassures me she's well on the road to recovery, and I will be honored to share a reading from Katie in a few minutes. We're going to mix it up a bit this morning, so the order of worship is a little different than normal, so pay attention. There are copies in the back if you didn't have a chance to pick one up. I wanted to give you a heads up before we got started. We're going to invite you all to share some words of joy, a short story, some memory. As you came in this morning, hopefully you got a card and something to write on, so you can start thinking about that. Clearly, if you don't want to share something, you are welcome to do that. We will also, if anybody wants to share out loud instead of in writing, we will invite that possibility as well. We want to make it possible for any chance. So write down a short memory or joy, and we can share them later, something that sparked joy for you. For those of you at home, we'll also leave the chat open longer than usual, so we invite you to add your joy stories to the chat, and we can read them out loud as well. If you do not want something read, then mark that. There will be quiet time before the sermon part for you to think about this a little bit more, so you can start to think about that now.
Welcome to First Parish in Milton. My name is Walt Hagenbuch. I am the worship associate for this summer service. Thank you for being with us this morning, either here in our meeting house or joining us by way of Zoom. However your journey, whatever your heritage, whomever you love, you are welcome here. A special welcome to Peter Smith, who is creating the musical experience for this worship service. And to Madeline Miller, who is providing the tech support, an enormous amount, necessary to connect Zoomers and make a digital record of the service. In our summer services, we enjoy lay-led preaching and storytelling. This gives us the opportunity to learn from each other's faith, journeys, and to get to know each other, both of which strengthen our community. A special welcome to anyone here with us for the first time. Living our faith happens both inside and outside this meeting house. This week, we call your attention to Reverend Tricia Brennan, who started at First Parish this week. Reverend Brennan is providing pastoral duties for us, while Reverend Lisa is on sabbatical. Is Reverend Tricia in church? Not? All right. At next Sunday service, Tom Kemp and Chris Clifford will lead a service with the intriguing title, I'll pick door number 2. No, door number 3. As you read the link, please do not skip over the note about S and EJ, an intriguing headline. It is related to the Lower Neponset Superfund site. Now please join me in the call to worship. Come, let us gather. We gather to celebrate the sacred within and among us. We come to seek spiritual growth and understanding. We strive to practice acceptance, forgiveness, and love. Together, we work to build a world with justice and compassion. Come, let us gather together.
Please rise as you are willing and able and join in singing hymn number 95 in the Gray Hymnal. There is more love somewhere.
I'll play this to the one.
I'll start our readings this morning with a reading from the prophet by Khalil Gibran. Then a woman said, "Speak to us of joy and sorrow." And he answered, "Your joy is your sorrow unmasked, and the self-same well from which your laughter rises was oft-time filled with your tears. How else can it be? The deeper that sorrow carves into your being, the more joy you can contain. When you are joyous, look deep into your heart, and you shall find it is only that which has given you sorrow that is giving you joy. When you are sorrowful, look again into your heart, and you shall see that in truth you are weeping for that which has been your delight. Some of you say joy is greater than sorrow, and others say, nay, sorrow is the greater. But I say unto you, they are inseparable. And the second reading from our own Katie Bay. Joy persists somehow, and I soak it in, writes Kate Bowler on Living with Illness. Joy and sorrow are stitched together on the cloth of life. The hard things in life had made the joys even more beautiful. The relief of a cool sea breeze after a heat wave, a bright yellow tiger swallowtail butterfly landing on a fragrant purple blossom, the comfort of a neighbor's dog coming over for a visit, the red, orange, and pink clouds at sunset, eating a small chocolate elephant from my love, doing acts of kindness, sending small, unexpected gifts in the mail to friends, getting more joy from giving than receiving. Thank you, Katie. Now we're going to have that quiet time for quiet and reflection. I invite you all to take a deep breath, enter into this time of peace. Let your mind focus on that word joy, that feeling joy. As you breathe, you can keep your eyes open or close them, whatever is comfortable for you. Let the thoughts wave through your mind. And if something special arises for you, jot it down. We'd love to hear a thought or a memory of joy that you would like to share with us. I'm going to time probably 3 or 4 minutes. So this is a long sit for many of you. I know some people are comfortable sitting quietly for a while, and others, it makes you anxious. So just keep trying to breathe and go with the flow. So, thank you. We're going to now collect any cards or notes that people have. Penny's going to help with collecting. Walt and I have both prepared stories that we are going to start with, and then when we finish sharing our stories, we can share some of the thoughts, both from those zooming in from home or around the world, and from those in the meeting house. And we appreciate your willingness to share in advance. So Walt, are you going to start?
I was driving on Kelly Drive in Philadelphia on my way to a therapy session. It hadn't been a good day. Things had not gone well. And my personal life was in tatters. So I was really down. And then on the radio, I started hearing Beethoven's Ninth Symphony, Ode to Joy. It is difficult to describe the change that took place in me, physical and mental. And the rest of the drive, I was able to enjoy the scenery.
Thank you, Walt. I'm going to read. I can't do extemporaneous like Walt does. 15 years ago, my younger sister Janie died after fighting leukemia for 5 years. She was 49 years old. I know this is an odd way to start a story about joy. But sometimes joy erupts in unexpected moments. Sometimes in moments of great sadness, joy arrives and reminds your heart to leap. Jane was a practicing Quaker, and so when we gathered to celebrate her life several days after her death, we observed the Quaker tradition of sitting in silence. Everyone was encouraged to speak when they were ready. Of course, in advance I had considered stories I might share. I'm a planner by nature, some of you know. I had come up with a few memories from the years that she and I had lived together in Boston when we first moved up here in the early 80s. Memories from our happy childhood days in King of Prussia, Pennsylvania. And from the joyous years after her daughter Alicia was born. Jane was a joy-filled person, so there were lots of joyful stories to share. So people started sharing lots of stories. Through the laughter and the tears, I looked up, and on the wall I saw a huge painting. We were in like an art center, multi-purpose room. It was a painting of the Rio Grande Gorge that was not far from her house, where she lived in New Mexico. And I suddenly remembered the story that I had to tell. When there was a pause in the storytelling, I stood up. And unlike me, I suddenly started telling the story. So here is a written down version of this story. Several years ago, we were visiting Taos after a family cross-country camping adventure. Lindsay and Sam were 8 and 10. Janie wanted to show us one of her favorite hikes, It was a steep trail down into the gorge where the Rio Grande cut through the flat plains west of Taos, New Mexico. At the bottom of the trail, there were hot springs. And there was also the rushing, churning, freezing water of the Rio Grande. Our children quickly invented a game of running up along the banks of the river for a few hundred meters, wading into the water till it was waist deep, and then body surfing down the river to a beach that was just below the hot springs. I confess I was nervous as I watched my 8 and 10-year-old children throw themselves with abandon into the rapids, and I sure as heck wasn't going to do it. But as I watched, I became more and more tempted. And before I knew it, I had waded out into the river and was standing in the middle, waiting for my courage to catch up with my legs. Suddenly, I was frozen. The fear of banging my head against the rocks in the water, the anxiety of not being able to regain my footing, it was like rough water. And of course, the icy cold of the water. I just couldn't move. Then Janie appeared on the bank next to me and said, "Just lift your feet." Like, duh. She shouted that over the roar of the water, and I shook my head and I turned and started back towards the bank. "Stop!" she yelled. She pointed to the kids waiting for me at the small beach down the river. And then she turned and looked at me and said, "Just let go." "Just let go," she shouted. I looked up at the sky and I lifted my feet, and the water lifted and carried me downstream. When I reached the beach, I stood up. I felt like my heart was going to burst from my chest. The joy of riding the Rio Grande was thrilling. The joy of letting go of my fear was exhilarating. But the greatest joy was in that moment, as I stood there surrounded by Jane's friends and family and loved ones, celebrating her life. I could feel her there, next to me. She was laughing and filling that room with joy. Thank you. Here's some for you. Here's some for me. Now, am I gonna read them here, Alan? Okay. Any glasses, no glasses, that one. So do I need to open the chat?
It's already there.
Oh, okay.
Did you take a microphone?
Yep, okay. If anybody else online wants to add something, I will start here with Cynthia. So from Cynthia, we have my granddaughter's smile, leaves blowing in the sunlight behind them. Do you want to read one of yours?
Welcoming kids back into my kitchen for cooking classes.
My dog Atlas needed a 10-pound benign fat tumor removed surgically at a cost of $2.5 million. Eli started a GoFundMe, and many neighbors and friends contributed. The surgery was a success. Atlas is a happy, smiley dog, which I can vouch for, and doing well at 11 and a half years. His happy smile and wagging tail always bring me joy every day. Also, prayers for my friend James, who is in the hospital. Send him good health and dedicated angel. Thank you, Liz.
Keep in mind that the few words are an attempt to convey the joy associated with them. Reaching out to a neighbor in need.
Joy is many tasks. Ice cold watermelon, fresh mint, real grape juice my grandmother made, hand-churned ice cream on the farm, sun gold cherry tomatoes, homegrown, cheese from the cheddar store, Ark. Thank you.
I anticipate joy when I get in the car to come to this place on Sunday morning. Joy blossoms when I come through the door and see all the welcoming smiles and requests for hugs. Those smiles and hugs carry me through the week, and I remember the depth of the joy on those smiles and hugs are built on so many years of shared experiences and work together to build this community and keep it strong.
We had a joyful celebration at my brother's wedding this summer. Family arrived from all over, and we had a blast.
Riding the elephant.
Oh, please. The showman steps up.
The reading about sorrow and joy brought this to my mind. When we went to Cambodia to adopt our children, we had not enough common language, and finding ways of bonding was really essential. My now eldest son, Sopra, whose name means lucky, he and I climbed atop an elephant in downtown Phnom Penh, and we were both terrified of the height, and we started bonding without words over our fear. And the elephant moved along and then stopped and did what you might imagine an elephant would do in the middle of the street. And we turned and looked at each other and just started laughing. And that was our bond of joy.
Thanks, Steve. Can't remember who's next. I'll go. Vicarious joy. Seeing my 2-year-old grandson race the length of the dock and jump in the lake. Thank you, Mark.
I had given up tutoring many years ago. However, I recently was honored to meet a budding 8-year-old musician who unfortunately had stopped schooling at 5 due to COVID and was unable to read. I felt I was called to help him. So spent my summer off with him 3 days a week for 5 hours each day. We read, did arithmetic, wrote stories, painted, played, and made music. His gains were great, but so were mine. Yesterday, I received a call from his mother while walking through the grocery store, and both she and my 8-year-old scholar sang joyously a beautiful thank you song they created.
There's another one up here from Chris. Cannon Mountain, a crystal clear day, top to bottom, no stopping. Thank you, Chris. My son David is a professional bass player in Las Vegas. Last year, we went to hear him perform. His current gig is to play in the 4-person band for Donny Osmond, my childhood idol. There's a story. I cried tears of joy and pride throughout most of the show. Thanks, Patricia. You out? Here, one more.
In April and May, I became a grandfather. Mason Ward Clifford. Una Spring Kilfoyle. The children of children who grew up at First Parish.
Steve, you want to share?
It happens to everybody all the time. I just got back from a week at music and dance camp. And talk about joy. I mean, all day long, you're in the woods and you're playing music all day long. But the wonderful special thing about this place was that every night there was dancing. And the dancing was English country dancing, which, if you're not familiar with, is a little bit like square dancing, but calmer, if you will. So it's like walking with purpose. But the wonderful thing was the interaction constantly that has to happen. You have to be present, or you don't know what you're doing. You fall off the line. You have to be present, and you have to interact with everybody there. There were 100 people there, and everybody there. There was a 90-year-old woman who had lost the sight of one eye, and there was a 16-year-old girl who's going to go to Cambridge Princeton Latin in the fall. Wonderful musicians, and people who'd been there for 50 years, people who'd been there the first time ever. But the whole experience of 2 hours of walking to music, turning, and everything is done through fingertips and eyesight. It's all about meeting eyes and smiling, once the masks came off, which happened about midweek. But smiles, eyes, and fingertips, and this movement, it was the definition of joy for hours and hours on end. It was really wonderful. I recommend it to anyone.
Thanks, Guy. Can't read. Joy is the memory of a relationship with my granddaughter, which gets me back to my writing poems about her when she was still. I think it's Sandy, so can you read that?
Joy is the memory of a relationship with my granddaughter, which goes back to my writing poems about her when, why don't you get up and I can't, I have
Sandra, you
trouble
wanted to-
reading her writing.
Sandra, you asked how you could help, so come on up and read your writing. Thank you. And we both know her handwriting, you know? Sorry.
Joy is the memory of a relationship with my granddaughter, which goes back to my writing poems about her when she was still unborn. Goes on for 14 years, and during which she has surprised me and delighted me by her words, her insight, her growth.
Thank you, Sandra. Penny would like to share. Is there anybody else who wants to share, like, out loud?
Did I pronounce the grandchild correctly? Una Spring Guilfoyle. Did I get that right?
I just wanted to say that in the last 2 weeks, I've had great joy from reading Frank Bruni's newest book, which is called The Beauty of Dusk. And I've read it to myself, I've read it to Owen, my partner, and I've read it to Barbara, my friend since we were 18, who has advanced Parkinson's. And this book is about people finding joy in hard stuff. And it's really good, and I recommend it highly.
I'm so grateful to people for being willing to share. Walt and I talked about this and just felt like at this point in the summer, it's a good opportunity for us to be able to just share words of joy. And I think one of the things that I learned from an experiment like this is that joy is all over the place, and how we each see it and feel it, and how it grows in us and how we share it varies. There's a wide range of stories that you all told. And that just gives me joy and hope for this world. So thank you. And we'll move on to the offering.
Today's offering is dedicated to the services and ministry of First Parish, Milton. Here's how to give. Simply text 617-539-7576, which you will see on your screen if you are coming to us virtually. Your text should be only the amount you want to give. If it's your first time to do this, you will get instructions for setting up an account with your credit or debit card. After that, you just text the amount. Again, the number is 617-539-7576. For those of you here in the meeting house, you can also leave cash or a check in the offering plate on your way out by the front door. If you are proud of this church, become its advocate. If you care about its future, share this message. We welcome all to build a just and healthy world with faith, love, and compassion.
Singers, come up here. Mess with this.
I hope the tune will be familiar to many of you. You may have heard it before in church. Just to point out that we're not going to repeat the refrain after every verse, as noted here. We're going to sing it at the beginning, then we're going to sing 3 verses, and then we're going to hit the refrain very enthusiastically twice around at the end. So once you've heard it enough, you'll be ready to sing along. Sing along anytime. Please join us.
The words are in your order of worship, and Penny's also passing out real music if people like the music part. But join us if you'd like.
We have the
Thank you to our volunteer singers. Please, yes, please stand and join in singing the doxology. The words are on your fan if you don't remember them. Join me in the offering dedication. May these gifts be transformed into strength for this faith community, into comfort, food, and shelter for those in need, and may we be transformed by generosity. Wait, I see one more chat. Just a personal note from Chris. Please remain standing for our closing hymn, For the Beauty of the Earth, number 21 in the gray hymnal. You may be seated. Here are some closing words. Go out into this beautiful day with joy. Share that joy with your family, your friends, and with complete strangers. We extinguish our chalice, but we take the light of our faith into our daily life and into the world. Thank you and have a good week.
Anyone on? Nope.